Okay, we're recording. Great. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants joining us from around the world. Welcome to today's webinar, Best Implementation Practices under the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC webinar series. My name is Christina Rodriguez, and I'm the Ocean and Coastal Zone Associate with the High Level Climate Champions team and co-lead of the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC Task Force. I'm honored to be facilitating this important conversation today alongside a group of incredible experts and leaders. It's a pleasure to welcome such distinguished and diverse audience members committed to advancing climate action through mangrove ecosystems. To give some context, the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC webinar series is designed to provide governments and mangrove practitioners with the technical expertise and practical tools needed to translate their mangrove breakthrough endorsements into clear, measurable, and science-based commitments. These commitments are critical for advancing the global conservation, restoration, sustainable management, and financing of mangrove ecosystems. Today's session, Best Implementation Practices, focus on equipping government officials, mangrove practitioners, and members of both the Mangrove Breakthrough and the Global Mangrove Alliance communities with the knowledge and tools needed to bridge the gap between ambition and action, ensuring that mangrove positive targets within nationally determined NDCs, nationally determined contributions, lead to tangible, measurable results on the ground. To support this goal, the Mangrove Breakthrough Task Force was established in early 2024. Its mandate has been to help endorsing governments turn high-level commitments into concrete policy actions through the development of their revised NDCs under the Paris Agreement. Now, in 2026, we're seeing clear and encouraging progress. More than 14 governments that have endorsed the Mangrove Breakthrough have submitted NDCs that recognize the vital role of mangroves. In particular, 15 of those countries that have endorsed the Mangrove Breakthrough and submitted revised NDCs, 14 of them explicitly reference mangrove targets in their revised NDCs. So this marks a significant step in the integration of nature-based solution into national climate strategies. As momentum continues to grow, the focus must now shift. So the task force is transitioning from supporting policy development to enabling effective implementation. The priority is ensuring that commitments made on paper are translated into measurable real-world impact. This webinar, therefore, will focus on best implementation practices. Today, we'll be highlighting comprehensive, up-to-date tools and resources that support the effective design, financing, and up-to-date execution of mangrove initiatives. Particular emphasis will be placed on ecologically sound approaches and inclusive community-based models that ensure long-term sustainability. Additionally, today's webinar will also feature government case studies from Mangrove Breakthrough endorsing governments and key Mangrove Breakthrough government partners offering practical insights and lessons learned directly from national experiences in implementing mangrove-related commitments within their NDCs. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes. Closed captioning is available for today's session, so if you would like to enable it, please click the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Additionally, we'll be hearing from a fantastic lineup of speakers and mangrove leaders today, and I'll be guiding us through that agenda. We'll conclude the session with a Q&A, so throughout today's session, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box, and we will address those at the end. And lastly, today's webinar will be recorded and shared afterward on the Mangrove Breakthrough YouTube channel, along with the links to all the resources that we'll be featuring today. Now, let's take a moment to walk through today's agenda. Next slide, please. Thank you. We'll begin with opening remarks from Monica Medina, a Mangrove Breakthrough champion who will help set the stage for today's discussion and frame the importance of moving from commitments to implementations. Following this, we'll have an introduction to the work of the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC Task Force from Annalise Zimmer, Policy Officer for Advancing Coastal Wetlands at the Pew Charitable Trust and co-lead of the task force. She'll provide context on the task force's role and its evolving focus on supporting implementation. After that, we'll then move into a series of country case studies from Mangrove Breakthrough endorsing governments and Mangrove Breakthrough partners, offering practical insights into how NDC commitments are being translated into action on the ground. With that, we'll hear from Ana Paula Prats, a Mangrove Breakthrough Council member and Director of the Department of Ocean and Coastal Management at Brazil's Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change. We'll also hear from Mr. Fajar Nurari, the Assistant Deputy for Food Production and Climate Change from the Republic of Indonesia. And lastly, we'll hear from Dr. Judith Okello, Principal Research Scientist at the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute and the Chair of the Kenya National Mangrove Management Committee. Following the country's perspectives, we'll transition into resource deep dives, focusing on practical tools that support effective implementation. And from here, we'll be hearing from Global Mangrove Alliance partners. We'll be hearing from Mark Beeston, the Blue Carbon Technical Director at Conservation International, to present on the high quality blue carbon principles and guidance. Afterwards, we'll hear from Elena Rodman, the Senior Technical Officer for Mangrove Restoration at Wetlands International, to introduce the Global Mangrove Alliance Best Practice Restoration Guidelines. We will then hear from Francis Okalo, the Program Director for Coastal and Oceans Resilience at IUCN Kenya, who will speak to the multi-stakeholder collaboration and practice through the Global Mangrove Alliance Kenya National Chapter. Finally, to close today's session, we'll hear from Inyas Begun, the Mangrove Breakthrough Executive Director, to share reflections on the way forward and what's next for the Mangrove Breakthrough during the closing remarks. Afterwards, we'll have a Q&A session that I'll be moderating, and I'll guide us through some of the questions that compiled to help connect the insights shared across the speakers. So we hope this agenda provides a pretty comprehensive view of what's to come, from policy to practice of how best implementation can be achieved. So with that, I'm pleased to hand it over to Monica Medina, Mangrove Breakthrough Champion, Arnold Distinguished Fellow at Conservation International, and former Assistant Secretary of State for Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs of the United States for our opening remarks. Monica, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. Hello, everyone, and it's such an honor to be part of this distinguished panel. I really don't know how I can possibly add to everything that you will hear from these wonderful panelists, and we look forward to the conversation that comes at the end. Let me start by just talking about the wonder of mangroves. I have been privileged to be able to experience mangroves all over the world, from Southwest Florida in the United States to Indonesia, and there is nothing like the peace and the beauty and the wonder of these powerful ecosystems, from the birds and the fish that live in them to the way that they absorb all of the stresses from the coastline, from storm surges, and to their beauty, their natural beauty. They're an amazing thing to be a part of. And so as we think about all of the practical stuff that we're going to talk about in this panel, I hope in the back of your minds you'll have that beautiful picture of mangroves and why we love them so much, why I love them, why you love them so much. This is a critical moment. I think you all know that. Nature-based solutions are more important than ever, and so is globalism. And so the work that we can do, both in countries and together, couldn't matter more than it does right now for biodiversity, for climate and food security, as well as for livelihoods around the globe. So let me just start with a few critical points that I think most of you already know, but let's just remember them, because these are our joint talking points as we go forward and give this pitch to whoever we can and however we can to support the work of the Mangrove Breakthrough. There are only 15 million hectares of mangroves remaining. That's half of their original extent. And these ecosystems are at a critical crossroads, just like multilateralism and our global climate. The Mangrove Breakthrough was launched to change the trajectory, to go from a downward to an upward trajectory on mangrove conservation. Mangroves sequester 43.5 million tons of carbon, and they are an incredible source of protection for coastlines. They provide flood protection risk to over 15 million people and provide over 65 billion in storm protection. And we know that they're being increasingly included in nature-based solution-based NDCs, which is so important because these are the national action plans. So this is the moment to go from ambition to action. We know that we have a $4 billion goal for transforming mangrove systems protections. $4 billion. We know that this is a big number, but it's one that is achievable if we have the science and the political will and the measurable outcomes and the real stick-to-itness on this ambition to action point. So we increasingly have a group of countries that are committed to this. Now, 49 governments have joined the Mangrove Breakthrough, and we know that with those governments, we can escalate the call for this 15 million hectares of mangroves protected. We want to double the amount that exists in the world today, from 15 million in existence to 30 million by 2030. These are all numbers that I think are pretty easy to remember. So try to keep these in your hip pocket when we're talking about mangroves and their importance, because every conversation, this is what I've learned in diplomacy. You never know when you might have a breakthrough conversation with someone important who can help scale these solutions, who don't have the same background in mangroves and mangrove restoration and the problem and the solutions that we do. And so look for every opportunity to spread the word and to grow the Breakthrough Alliance in a number of ways, whether it's countries or other organizations that may be able to help support. So I am just excited as I can be about this moment and about energizing all of you to really think about the ways that you can help expand this universe of mangrove champions and this exciting moment for a mangrove breakthrough everywhere. We know that if we put our minds to it, there is nothing we can't do. NDCs can be a policy lever. You as individuals can be policy champions. And with the mangrove breakthrough, there is so much support for you in this work. So I want you to think of the Mangrove Breakthrough as your support system. The way that mangroves protect coastlines, you will help protect mangroves. And this is the moment, again, to achieve 15 million hectares of increased mangroves in the world, $4 billion committed to mangrove restorations, and to grow this network of 49 countries to even more as we go through this important triple COP year, where we have both a biodiversity COP, a climate COP, and a desertification COP. And even that one matters because there is a tremendous link between what happens on land and what happens in the ocean, and that's where mangroves come in. So thinking about using this year as an opportunity at every turn to try to expand our reach for mangroves. I just want to emphasize there are 3 pillars to the breakthrough. Transformative collaboration, that's what I've really emphasized. Sustainable finance and market engagement. I haven't talked as much about that, but we have other panelists who will bring that topic more to attention, because there isn't a more effective nature-based solution than mangroves because of their ability to protect from storms and their economic engine. So I think we need to bring that potential forward. This could be a new asset class of carbon offset solutions if we play our cards right, if we market them well. And then we have a lot of science-based and data-driven tools to support this work through the Mangrove Breakthrough. And I encourage you to always, as I said at the beginning, think of the breakthrough as your support system. Like mangroves are a support system for the planet, the breakthrough is your support system for helping mangroves. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Christina and just say I'm looking forward to hearing from all the other panelists and from looking forward to the questions and the comments at the end. And I just want to say thank you again to all the Breakthrough members and to all the others who are on this webinar today, because we can't do it without you. Thank you very much. Back to you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Monica, for those insightful opening remarks and for clearly setting the stage for today's discussion. I'm sure the call to action will be answered by today's audience members. We will now turn to Annalise Zimmer, Policy Officer for Advancing Coastal Wetlands at the Pew Charitable Trust and co-lead of the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC Task Force, who will introduce the work and the evolving focus of the task force. Annalise, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Christina. And I have to say, both Christina and Monica did a wonderful job of introducing. So I'm going to give a brief overview and some more background about the NDC Task Force and the Mangrove Breakthrough. Next slide, please. So as a refresher, there, and there will not be a quiz at the end, but the Mangrove Breakthrough was launched in 2022 to mobilize collective action to halt loss, restore half, and double protection of mangroves globally, while also mobilizing sustainable finance by 2030. Next slide, please. As of today, we have 49 government endorsements. 29 of these are national governments and 20 are subnational governments. These governments represent 60% of the world's mangroves. This is so exciting. There are also hundreds of non-state actors, like many of you, who are part of the Mangrove Breakthrough community and helping to advance these goals. Next slide, please. So the NDC Task Force was founded 2 years ago to help mobilize the endorsements that governments have made to the Mangrove Breakthrough and transform that into policy action. The Mangrove Breakthrough was co-founded by the Global Mangrove Alliance and the UN High-Level Champions, and we see nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, to the Paris Agreement as a strong policy lever to advance the conservation, restoration, and finance of mangroves globally. So the NDC Task Force is a community of mangrove practitioners, experts, researchers, and groups doing implementation on the ground, providing technical guidance to governments to include science-based targets for mangrove ecosystems within their nationally determined contributions. Next slide, please. Our goals, in addition to providing that technical assistance to governments to include mangroves in their NDCs, is also now, as we look towards 2026, and many governments have already submitted their NDCs, is to assist Mangrove Breakthrough endorsing governments in NDC implementation and investment planning. We also promote best practice guidance and facilitate knowledge sharing through webinars such as this one, as well as workshops and in-person events. Next slide, please. If you're interested in looking back at the other webinars that the task force has hosted, I invite you to check out the Mangrove Breakthrough's YouTube channel, which includes 3 recorded webinars that we hosted in the last year. And I'm really grateful that you're all joining us today to learn about this next step of implementation of NDCs. Next slide, please. I also invite you to take a look at the guidance that the Mangrove Breakthrough NDC Task Force developed last year to provide very clear and practical resources for governments seeking to include mangroves within their NDCs. You can access these by scanning the QR code. These start with a very high-level overview of the importance of mangroves and why they can and should be included in NDCs. And Monica did a great job of outlining the true importance of mangroves for their climate adaptation and mitigation benefits. We also have a compilation of examples of mangrove targets in NDCs, template language for including mangroves in NDCs, and a co-authored document with the Friends of Ecosystem-Based Adaptation on how mangroves can be included in the Global Goal on Adaptation. So I invite you to check these out, especially if your country is still working on developing the NDC 3.0. These could be great resources for you. Next slide, please. And I'll just revisit what Christina mentioned about the statistics of how many governments that have endorsed the Mangrove Breakthrough have included mangroves in their NDCs. So, out of the 29 national governments, 22 have submitted revised NDCs, and 14 of these include mangrove ecosystems. Um, so we're really excited today to be highlighting some of those governments in country case studies. And we're very excited as a task force to move forward and with the emphasis on implementation. So with that, I will end my presentation with a huge thank you to you all for joining us today. And we're really excited to hear from our case studies, presenters. And if you'd like to get involved with the NDC task force, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annalise, for that comprehensive overview and for highlighting the important role of the task force in supporting countries' implementation efforts. We are now going to move into segment one, which is focused on implementation case studies, where we're going to be hearing directly from Mangrove Breakthrough endorsing governments and government partners on their experience translating NDC commitments into actions. We'll begin with Brazil. Brazil endorsed the Mangrove Breakthrough in June of 2025 during the United Nations Ocean Conference in Nice, France. The endorsement was signed by Minister Marina Silva, Annabella Bratz, who's joining us today, and Anna Tony, CEO of COP30, on the sidelines of the UNOC conference. It's my pleasure to introduce Annabella Bratz, a Mangrove Breakthrough Council member, Director of the Department of Oceans and Coastal Management at Brazil's Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change. Brazil, which holds the second largest area of mangrove coverage globally, has advanced significant efforts through its Pro Manguezal program, referenced in its NDC 3.0. In this segment, Ana Paula Prats will share insights on how the Pro Manguezal supports Brazil's efforts to implement its revised NDC. Ana Paula, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yes. Okay. Thank you. As Christina said, it's a very, very pleasure to be here and the special opportunity with you today to share experience and talk a little about what I've been implementing in Brazil. And I'd like to thank all of you, the organizers, for the invitation. Please, the next one. Okay. Um, our department in the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change, we have the mission to ensure that the ocean, the coastal zone are fully and permanently integrated into national and international policies. Our mission has guided us since 2023 when the partner was established under President Lula's administration with the National Secretary for Climate Change and the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change. Next, please. Brazil is a tropical and temperate country with wide variety of environment and ecosystem. But focus specifically on mangroves, our team here, Brazil has mangroves along virtually its entire coastline, from the state of Amapá in the north, extreme north of Brazil, until the Santa Catarina state in the south, covering a total of 9,000 kilometers of our coastline. In the Amazonia coast between Amapá and Maranhão states is where we find the largest continuous threat of mangroves. And in this region, more than 500,000 families depend directly on the mangrove service. According to the most recent mapping, which I will show you in the moment, we have approximately 1,002,000 hectares of mangroves, and all these areas, 82% of which are located within protected areas. Next, please. Okay. To fulfill our mission, we seek to align our action with national and international climate and biodiversity policies. Through this work, we have succeeded for the first time in incorporation ocean-based action into Brazil new NDC, submitted at COP29. The National Climate Plan, where our NDC targets will be implemented, and the new NBSAP published last year. We start this work at the G20 in 2024, where it was noted that countries need to include ocean-based action in their NDCs, and in UNOC 3, last year, Brazil and France launched the Blue NDC Challenge, encouraging other countries to include ocean-based solutions in their NDC. Building on this, the Blue NDC Task Force was announced at the COP30 and will be launched at our Ocean Conference and the COP31. The National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan (NBSAP), which incorporates the GBF targets, include the implementation of Promanguezal as a program that contributes to several Brazilian targets. At COP30, mangroves were the focus of several events, and the ocean theme was highlighted in the high-level segment in the action agenda with the blue package present, and of course in the civil society mobilization. Also during COP30, Brazil ratified the BBNJ agreement and joined the Ocean Panel. Next, please. And to achieve our international commitments, we have launched several key policies, public policies, since 2023. In addition to Program Gazal that we are launched in 2024, the central theme of this presentation, we have developed also marine special planning across the entire Brazil EEZ, as well as the strategy for conservation and sustainable use of coral reefs, our Pro-Coral strategy, and we have also launched the National Plastic Free Ocean Strategy. All of these actions, along with several others, have been incorporated in the National Climate Plan. Next one, please. And here, as I mentioned you, the new Brazilian NDC includes for the first time ocean-based action, especially Pro-Manguezal. It's a program for manguezal in mangroves in Brazil, Pro-Coral, and marine special planning, mainly because we integrate also the protected areas, include terrestrial and coastal and marine protected areas. And in this case, Promanguezal plays an important role in climate change adaptation and mitigation strategy. We are convinced that by implementation, Promanguezal Brazil will also implement our NDC. Next one, please. Here is the summary of our Brazil's climate plan in the path to achieving our NDC. We have 23 ministries that are members of the Interministerial Committee on Climate Change, have developed and agreed upon 6 sectoral mitigation plans, 16 sectoral adaptation plans that include the thematic plan for the ocean coastal zone, and 5 additional cross-country strategies. Next one, please. Here is a brief overview of the Ocean and Coastal Zone Plan, which encompasses everything from conservation efforts and the empowerment of traditional communities to ecosystem resilience initiatives and issues related to the coastal and ocean government. All these actions are together integrated in our action plan. Next one, please. And of the various initiatives under Pro-Manguezal, I want to highlight three as example of our goals and outcome efforts. For example, as a strategy for both mitigation and adaptation, we are focused on mangrove restoration. One of our goals is to have 17,000 hectares of mangrove in the process of restoration by 2030. We have already secured an investment of approximately $10 million through the Floresta Viva call for proposal launched by the bank BNDES, is our National Development Bank Brazil, with 8 initial projects aiming to restore approximately 1,700 hectares. It's not sufficient, but it is a start. And by 2026, here in this year, we intend to establish the National Network for the Restoration of Brazilian Mangroves. Another important to effective action for mitigation and adaptation is the creation of new protected areas. Since 2 years ago, we have established 3 additional federal protected areas with mangroves, and we have worked on further proposals to be established. In the other hand, in this March, we released the updated of mapping of all the Brazilian mangroves. Next one, please. Here you can see other initiatives to complete since the launch of Pro-Manguezal, for example, and that contribute to our NDC. For example, social environment safeguards for blue carbon projects to ensure fairness and transparency, national strategy for a plastic-free ocean, as I said before. We did the scientific synthesis on the syntax of the potential of mangroves for climate change mitigation and adaptation action in Brazil. It's a CIMA-CLIN. Also, the national inventory of wetlands in Brazil, and other things to do. And the one is special to mention, it's a guide to green-gray infrastructure in the coastal Amazon. Next one, please. One of our major activities this year is updated the country mangrove data, and we map all the mangroves and monitor the vegetation coverage is essential for implementation various several initiatives for our Pro-Manguezal. You can pass the next one, please. And all the mapping and the data is available online on the platform called Pangia, operated by the IBAMA in Brazil, with partnership with our Ministry of the Environment. Next one, please. And I think I talk a lot, but we would like to thank you once again for the opportunity to share our initiatives. And here you can see the QR code. You can access our WhatsApp channel where we share various initiative publications and updates on the implementation of mangrove Pro-Manguezal, as well as the promotion materials we have already produced. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much, Ana Paula. It's always so lovely to have you join us, and your remarks were excellent. And thank you for those valuable insights and for highlighting how Brazil is advancing implementation through strong national policy and programs, including the Pro-Manguezal. We will now continue with segment 1, implementation country case studies, with our second country example, Indonesia. Indonesia, a global leader in mangrove action, endorsed the Mangrove Breakthrough in January of 2026, further strengthening international momentum and reaffirming their commitment to advancing mangrove conservation and restoration as a core component of their national climate strategy. It's my pleasure to invite Mr. Fajar Nurari, Assistant Deputy for Food Protection and Climate Change from the Republic of Indonesia. Indonesia has made important progress in integrating mangrove positive targets within its revised NDC. We look forward to hearing how Indonesia's efforts in mangrove conservation and restoration is contributing to its NDC implementation. Mr. Nurari, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure for me to be here to update you some current progress on Indonesia's mangrove protection and management. First of all, I should like to thank you for the invitation and appreciation from us for the Mangrove Breakthrough for organizing this webinar. I think it's very strategic meeting for us to update to each other about our mangrove policy. Well, Indonesia uh, has mentioned that we have around 15 million hectares of mangrove around the world, and we host around more than 20% of world total mangrove in Indonesia alone. These ecosystems are not merely biophysical assets, but serve as critical instrument for global climate change mitigation, with carbon sequestration capacity significantly higher than those of terrestrial forests. And we have also included the mangrove potential of carbon absorption in our second NDC. Yeah, under the mandate of our ministry, the Coordinating Ministry of Food Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia, mangrove conservation is viewed as a strategic effort to sustain coastal fisheries ecosystem, which are very vital for food availability and the livelihoods of local communities along the coastline. Next, please. Yeah, as I mentioned that Indonesia had submitted its second nationally determined contribution. Indonesia positions mangroves as a key pillar within the FOLU, forestry and other land use sector to achieve our national emission reduction target. Yeah, but I think around 140 million tons of CO2 equivalent by 2030 is targeted to also committed to be achieved by Indonesian government. This target requires of course consistent efforts to maintain the integrity of mangrove ecosystem to ensure optimal carbon absorption capacity. Again, our ministry, on behalf of the government of Indonesia, plays a central role in coordinating, synchronizing, and overseeing cross-ministerial efforts, including the establishment of sectoral greenhouse gas emission baselines, roadmap, and the development of more targeted, integrated, and scientifically measurable mitigation action plans. We have just had a new government regulation. I should inform you that in our system, government regulation is on the second level after the law. Yeah, after the law. So it is very strong regulation stipulated by Indonesian government to ensure our mangroves are protected through restoration and conservation efforts. The regulation itself introduced integrated landscape of mangrove for planning, managing, monitoring, and base for management and administrative boundaries. Embedded in this regulation, the safeguard and inclusivity, ensuring all community rights, equitable benefit sharing, and gender equality principles. Other than this government regulation, we have also just issued the presidential regulations, the next level, the next level of legal products, number 110 to 2025 on the implementation of carbon pricing instruments and the control of green gas emission control nationally. The regulation itself integrates mangrove and blue carbon into national mitigation instruments and formally recognizes mangroves as key subsectors in emission reduction efforts. The line ministry, who is mandated to handle this mangrove issue, is the Ministry of Forestry, Ministry of Environment, and Ministry of Marine and Fisheries. The presidential regulation, also clarifies institutional roles across forestry, marine domains, ensuring stronger alignment in implementation. In this regard, I would like to kindly being advice from countries or from what is it researcher which on which best practice how to what is it address this mangrove issue, particularly on the in term of area, because it lays on land base and also in the coastline base. So in our system in Indonesia, we have several ministries who are in charge on mangrove. So it costs us yeah, some need long discussion to address this mangrove. So I need some advice from this forum. Let me continue to the implementation of the programs. We have at least 3 flagship programs. First of all, the M4CR supported by the World Bank. It's still going on. The support is around 190 million US dollar. The implementation itself, it's located in 4 provinces across Indonesia, and we have now already successfully planted around 15,000 hectares from 53,000 hectares that targeted by this project. We have calculated approximately carbon stocks from this mangrove area counted around 169,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. This carbon project is not only for climate mitigation, but it also aim to enhance coastal resilience through carbon offset. Why I'm saying this? Because as I mentioned, that based on the new presidential regulation on carbon pricing, where the blue carbon is one of the sector and subsector of the Indonesian carbon pricing, we what is it? We hope that it could contribute to our NDC achievement, as well as the carbon pricing or carbon trading revenue. So as Indonesia, as the largest mangrove forest, as I mentioned, around more than 20%, it recognizes that our coastal heritage is not just a national treasure, but merely is a global atmospheric necessity. We have a second flagship program, so-called the National Blue Carbon Action Partnership. We have produced the action plan, national action plan, agreed by various of ministries, relevant ministries, NGOs, development partners, and academics they agree on this national action plan. It consists of 5 strategic program and 21 action plans. It's divided into 5 strategic action program, spatial area and area planning, emission reduction and carbon stock enhancement, integration of blue carbon into NDC, seagrass policy strategy, and blue economy and climate resilient development. Um, we also have another flagship program, what we call the development or the establishment of the International Mangrove Research Center, supported by the UAE government, uh, 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 with a grant around 13 some millions of dollars. It will be built in Bali, in Sarangan Island, uh, with a large of area around 2.5 hectares. It will be a very precious and strategic research center of mangrove. This facility is designed as I don't know, what's it called? It's as a hub of international cooperation, technology transfer, and biotechnology innovation and research. Yeah, to ensure that our national conservation from Indonesia can contribute to global policies on the protection of mangrove and are also globally accountable. Well, ladies and gentlemen, uh, based on that information that I have shared or updated, we are uh, more than happy, yeah, to uh, becoming a global benchmark in mangrove management and welcomes for broader collaboration from any one of you, recognizing that climate change is a shared responsibility and that mangroves are among the most effective nature-based solutions available. Moving forward, Indonesia will continue to adopt an inclusive approach to ensure that mangrove ecosystems generate direct economic benefits for uh, local communities along the coastline. As you know that we have thousands of kilometers coastal lines with around I think 95% of our population living in that coastal line. So most of Indonesian populations very depend on the coastal line well-being. So it is very strategic for Indonesia. Therefore, I think I should underline that it's mentioned also by Monica and Christina that we are among 14 countries first who has already submitted our second NDC and the 22 countries who's endorsed Mangrove Breakthrough because we see the strategic position and roles of Mangrove Breakthrough on this issue. So once again, we are fully support of any programs for Mangrove Breakthrough, and hopefully we will see very soon Mangrove Breakthrough projects in Indonesia. Thank you. I'll give it back the screen to Christina.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naradi, for sharing Indonesia's experience and for emphasizing the importance of cross-sectoral coordination. We now move into our third and final country example within Segment 1, Implementation Country Case Studies, Kenya. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Judith Okela, Principal Research Scientist at the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute and the Chair of the Kenya National Mangrove Management Committee. Dr. Okela, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Christina, for the introduction. Just to mention that the management tools that I'm going to present to you together provide a framework for effective stakeholder engagement, including community and mangrove restoration and management here in Kenya. And this together actually contribute also to the achievement of the targets set in our country's NDC. Next. Next. Wow, it's showing something different. Hello.
Yes, apologies. I don't believe we have slides for this segment. Is it okay if we just use the placeholder? Dr. Okello?
Okay. Let me just open from my side so that it guides. Let me just open it from my side so that it guides my presentation anyway.
Yes,
Just
we can.
1 minute, please.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And
Okay.
we'll use the moment to ask participants if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We will have a Q&A segment after all the speakers. So for any questions, whether it's from Brazil, Kenya, or Indonesia, please feel free to use the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just present without the PowerPoint. Apparently, some technical hitch. So basically, Kenya officially included mangrove conservation and restoration as NBS in her updated NDCs in the year 2020. And this NDCs actually prioritizes conservation and rehabilitation of degraded forests, including mangrove forests, as part of the country's 32% emission reduction target by 2030. And this is, you'd look at this as ambitious, but yet we submitted an even more ambitious target come 2025, which looks into reducing our emission by 35%. Now, this basically calls for even more stringent actions to ensure that we walk the talk. And next, I would like to mention that why are we focusing on mangroves? Mangroves are basically considered as one of the most productive ecosystems in the world, and Kenya is not left behind, but it is has been going on. Quite unfortunate that my slides will not show, but I had a photo of the situation that we have here in Kenya. So there's a lot of we're looking at a productivity of ecosystems. Kenya also has a rich history utilization of mangroves as a resource. As early as the 20th centuries, mangroves already exported quite a substantial quantity of mangroves to the UAE, the Arab countries. Basically, these were meant for house construction. Now, at that point in time, mangroves were considered mostly as a utilization area, so basically for just the wood and wood products. But then you realize the fact that mangroves have got uses. The country noted that there's a need to turn from out. So now, it is not the first time that Kenya is having a national mangrove management plan. We've had plans that basically aimed at reducing cutting pressure in specific sites.
Dr. Okello, sorry,
Hello?
your internet is breaking up. Do you think perhaps you can, and maybe we can hear you better?
Okay.
Sorry.
Can I? Oh,
Can you hear?
I didn't know that the slides were showing. So can I put off my camera so that you hear me more clearly? Then I would be.
Yes, we can hear you better.
Hear me now?
Yes, thank you. And you have slides as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll move a few steps backwards. Thank you very much. Now this makes my work easy. Now I'll just move a few steps backward. The slide that is showing is on the statement that I made, that why mangroves. Okay, another step backward. So just let that be on, the one on what of mangroves, that's okay. So don't move. So basically, I did indicate that why mangroves. Mangroves are considered as one of the most productive ecosystems in the world. And of course, their value cannot be questioned. Next. Now, despite the value that actually now most of us are aware of, mangroves still remain among the most threatened ecosystems of the world. And I did indicate that I had a photo just to show you how grave the situation is here in Kenya. Let's move next. Looking at the history of Kenya, I've also talked a bit into this, that Kenya has a rich history when it comes to mangrove utilization, particularly of the wood and products. So as early as the 20th century, Kenya was already exporting mangrove wood to the UAE, particularly for house construction. Now, at that point in time, mangroves were looked at basically as provisioning, more so the regulatory, the cultural, the support usage of mangroves were basically ignored. Next. Now, Kenya saw the need to turn the tables around. So it is not that the current mangrove plan that is the first one. Initially, we had plans, but then the plans that were there basically focused on reducing cutting pressure. Just as I've mentioned that mangroves were looked at as resources for harvesting wood. So basically the plants were meant to reduce that particular pressure. Now, even with these particular plans that were put in place, still the issues that were mentioned in our Kenya Forest Master Plan still remained persistent. So come the year 2016, Kenya came up enacted an act of parliament that provided for community engagement in the forest conservation. And it is within the same act that provided for development of a management plan that, of course, complies with engaging stakeholders as much as possible. So Kenya resorted to come up with a plan that balances the needs of people and conservation as well as sustainable utilization. Next. So it might seem that it was an easy process, but no, it wasn't. It took us like 5 years for us to come up with this particular management plan that I'm talking about. And it is the first ever national management plan that covers the entire coastline of Kenya. So it was quantitative, and I think that made the process quite slow. But on the other side of the coin, it produced a document that is acceptable with as many stakeholders as possible. So come 2017, we launched our first ever national mangrove management plan, and the journey began from there. Next. Now, this particular national mangrove management plan has 6 programs enshrined in it, and I'll just focus on 2 particular programs. The first program that touches on mangrove forest conservation and utilization, and the second one that is on community participation. And why 2? I'm presenting 2 particular documents that are core to mangrove management currently. So these particular tools that were developed in line the first 2 programs. So ensuring sustainable management of mangrove forest and products, as well as utilization that ensures that the community benefits, but the ecological integrity of our mangroves are maintained. Next. So again, these documents are, or other tools are available online. Generally, they are aimed to streamline restoration activities in Kenya by providing best practices that are applicable to both community and institution. So looking at the restoration guideline, the one to our right, it provides a step-by-step approach, logical of designated mangrove sites. From the mangrove restoration guideline, we've also been able to develop site-specific restoration plans, which the community are able to use put in place while they are restoring degraded areas, managing the mangroves in general. And to even move far, we have even come up with, a user-friendly version of the mangrove restoration guideline, just to ensure that every stakeholder is able to make use of this document. So this is a guideline that now was translated into Swahili. Next. In conclusion, there's a lot of mess that has been happening. Yeah, I wouldn't say that we are able to change everything by turning the tables around, as I indicated in one of my slides. But I believe that having the right tools in place, that's a step in the right direction. There was an attempt in the past by somebody to enter into the Guinness Book World of Records through planting of mangroves. With the guidelines and tools that we have in place at this time, the same mistakes will never be repeated again. Thank you very much. Next. Last but not least, in my thank you slide, there are specific institutions that allow me to thank. Of course, the government of Kenya, WWF Kenya, Wetlands International, and specifically they've been quite instrumental in working with us as the National Mangrove Management Committee to ensure that the programs that were enshrined in the management plan are delivered to the very end. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okello, and apologies for the technical glitches, but thank you for those insightful reflections and for concluding our country case studies. We will now transition to segment 2, Tools and Resources for Implementation, where we'll explore practical guidance and frameworks that support high-quality mangrove action. To begin, it's my pleasure to invite Mark Beeston, Blue Carbon Technical Director at Conservation International, who will present the high-quality blue carbon principles and guidance and their role in supporting policymakers, practitioners, and countries in implementing updated NDCs. Mark, over to you.
Thank you so much. Let's jump on to the first slide, please. I'm joining you today to talk about the Mangrove Breakthrough's guiding principles for project design and implementation, and how we transformed those guiding principles into a framework to support project managers. So the basis for the Mangrove Breakthrough and Global Mangrove Alliance guiding principles are the 2022 high-quality blue carbon principles and guidance. A few early forest carbon projects had well-documented negative impacts, and investors do not want to risk repeating that in the blue carbon space. So they focused on what they called high-quality or high-integrity projects, which have been developed according to best practices and which mitigate the risk of harm to people or the environment. So these principles were developed drawing from the community of restoration around mangroves and the lessons learned from early blue carbon projects such as Vida Mangla and Makoko Pamoja, and they frame best practices in ecology, policy, and community engagement to guide corporate and government decision-making. The original 5 principles focus on safeguarding nature, empowering people, working in the local context, using the best science, and engaging high-integrity funders. The GMA and Mangrove Breakthrough adopted these principles and added a 6th around designing for long-term sustainability. Next slide, please. So feedback from early adopters of the principles was very clear. They asked, what activities does a project have to do to align with the high quality principles? So we worked with a group of experts to produce the high quality blue carbon practitioner's guide. This manual takes the high quality and mangrove breakthrough principles and connects them to project development activities to make it clear what projects need to do. Instead of spending years working on this, we published a first draft as proof of concept in 2024, and for the last year we have worked with mangrove projects, some grant funded, some producing carbon or biodiversity credits, to socialise and test this prototype product. Based on that testing, the second edition is due for release in June, with expanded text and links to more than 150 additional resources to help project managers find what they need to deliver blue carbon projects, which are aligned with these principles and also with leading carbon standards and Article 6.4 requirements. And we built the practitioner's guide around a tool which a project can use to track their development progress and alignment with quality principles, and then communicate that to investors, philanthropists, or governments. Next slide, please. Excuse me for going a bit fast. So this is the progress wheel tool. We mapped all our quality indicators to the Society for Ecological Restoration and Recovery wheel, which is designed to track project progress against key indicators and then condense all that complex information into a simple visual output. The same system is now used by the Global Biodiversity Standard and the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. It looks complicated, but it is simple to use. We developed a multiple choice framework that asks, what have you done so far? Did you follow an established process? Do you have the evidence to prove it when required? This includes risk assessment, alignment with national targets, following free, prior and informed consent, community equity, project design, all of that. Then you press one button and the sheet fills in the wheel for you. 3 or above is good, 1 or 2 is a work in progress. And for those areas which show up as needing work, the practitioner's guide is laid out to exactly match the self-assessment framework. So you can go straight to the section you need and find links to a choice of resources that support that stage of project development. So the wheel tool doesn't just take hundreds of pages of technical reporting and then present it as a visual. It also lays out a framework for project design. Next slide, please. As a quick example, these 3 wheels show project progress over time. Year 1, just starting out, making progress in community engagement, signing agreements, and beginning to design the project with community consent. Then, in Year 2, when this was completed, they are moving ahead in all areas, still with community engagement as the most advanced activity, as you would expect. And then we can see where they are projecting the progress they expect to have made by Year 4, assuming they're able to secure funding to move forward. So now we can start to see how this can be used in storytelling or reporting. And for example, if you are reviewing grant applications or managing a portfolio of projects, you could send this to project managers to fill out, giving you a standardized and comparable metric to understand the stage of project development and how that aligns with the guiding principles. Next slide, please. And this framework has been adopted by the Mangrove Breakthrough as a way to see the progress of projects within their global project pipeline on the Restore platform. And we are starting to see some uptake already using the prototype version. The projects here are all implemented by the same group, and it looks like they've shared a forward projection like we saw in the previous slide, rather than a current status for 3 individual sites. The second edition of the guide and the tool has a greater focus on being clear about the date of the report and on providing documentation to support your assessment. And we will be producing instructions for use with the Restore platform and some online training sessions too. And to the final slide, please. We made a deliberate choice to only link to resources in this guide which do not require paying a fee or signing up to a membership in order to read them. And we found a few areas where guidance was either aimed at other sectors, like forest conservation, or where open access guidance was limited or hard to find. For benefit sharing, there's a few good resources for forest projects, but they can be easily missed. So with Cross-Boundary and the Blue Carbon Action Partnership, we've also produced additional guidance on benefit sharing agreements, which will be released on May the 5th. The revised Practitioner's Guide comes out June. And with IBCI and the Smithsonian, we're currently working on updating the Blue Carbon Field Manual for measuring mangrove carbon stocks. And that is due for release this autumn. And with that very fast talk, thank you so much for listening. And back to you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Mark, for that clear and practical overview. Continuing with segment 2, we will now hear from Elena Rodman, Senior Technical Officer for Mangrove Restoration at Wetlands International, will introduce the Global Mangrove Alliance Best Practice Restoration Guidelines. Look forward to learning how these guidelines support effective on-the-ground implementation of mangrove initiatives. Elena, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Okay, so my role today is to focus on a practical next question, which is, when a country is ready to restore mangroves, how do we do it well? And that is where the best practice guidelines for mangrove restoration become so useful. And many countries now include mangroves in their updated NDCs, as we've heard today, and that's excellent progress. But writing a target into an NDC is only the beginning, because targets alone, we know, do not restore ecosystems. Good implementation does. Now, let's click onto the next one, onto the next slide. If implementation quality, well, it had some, I'd put some animations on. So if you could just click back once, you might be able to see the animation. Okay, give it a click. Okay, no animations, that's not a problem. So if implementation quality is weak, we risk wasting money, losing trust, and missing climate and biodiversity goals. So this is the right moment to focus on what good implementation looks like. And so the goal behind the guidelines was to bring together the latest scientific knowledge and local experience into one clear, practical resource. So we worked with dozens of experts and practitioners to capture what actually works in mangrove restoration. This guidance aims to connect practical implementation of mangrove restoration to 6 guiding principles, as you've seen in Mark's presentation. And so these principles are woven through the document and can be applied in every phase of the project cycle. Next slide. I'm not going to go into the details of these 6 guiding principles. You can see for yourself, the first one is to protect nature first. And, you know, I will just go into maybe this first one and say that, you know, the first thing we need to do is protect what already exists. And I loved hearing about Ana Paula, you know, with those 3 protected areas. That is exactly the first thing that we should be targeting, protecting what already exists. We've also seen so many well-intentioned projects planting in mudflats or seagrass beds or places already recovering naturally. So, you know, we have to make sure that we're safeguarding nature and maximizing biodiversity. The second one is to use the best knowledge. And again, I'm going to go back to Fajar Nouradi's point about, and also Dr. Judith spoke about this, you know, good restoration starts with understanding why mangroves were lost, combining science and local knowledge and adapting over time. So I'm not going to go into the rest of those. The document will be shared with you. You'll be able to read it more in depth. But these 6 guiding principles are core. If any one of them is missing, then project risk rises very quickly. Next slide. So Let me briefly connect this to what you've already heard today. We know that we're getting much better at defining ambition. We're setting targets, we're identifying finance, but one gap remains. And there is still a difference between writing a target in an NDC and delivering a functioning mangrove ecosystem on the ground. And that gap is not about ambition, that gap is about method. And that is exactly where these guidelines come in. Next slide. You'll see that these guidelines support you in translating policy into practice. They're a tool to help people make better decisions early and provide a practical way to plan restoration properly. They'll bring in land tenure, governance, community needs and ecological conditions, so that holistic approach to mangrove restoration. I repeat, doing this, using this approach reduces risk and increases the chance of success. So in a nutshell, NDCs tell us what to achieve. Best practice tells us how to achieve it successfully. Next slide. So one of the most useful messages in the guidelines is that mangrove restoration is not about planting. It's about creating the right conditions for mangroves to naturally grow back. And we have seen nurseries full of seedlings with no long-term plan. We've also seen single species line planting with low biodiversity. We've seen planting in unsuitable areas with low survival, and also one-day planting events with no follow-up. So when this happens, the damage is not only ecological, but we can also risk losing community trust. And these efforts often come with good intentions, but good intentions are not enough. Therefore, the approach that we promote in the guidelines and the approach that we promote through the Global Mangrove Alliance and the Mangrove Breakthrough is CBEMR, Community-Based Ecological Mangrove Restoration. Next slide. And this approach focuses on creating the right conditions first, especially water flow, addressing the drivers of loss. So really understanding the reasons why mangroves are degraded or why they're logged or why they're grazed, and working with communities so that mangroves can recover naturally wherever. So better practice starts by asking better questions first. Is this the right site for restoration? Why are mangroves not growing here now? Do communities support this work? Who owns or manages the land? And should we plant or should we fix water flow first? And that is what best practice really means. When the enabling physical, biophysical and socioeconomic conditions are put back in place, applying ecological mangrove restoration, and nature will do the rest. Doing the right things in the right place, in the right order. And of course, most of the times the solution will not be planting. It will be less aesthetic. It might be restoring tidal flow or improving site conditions or allowing natural recovery. So really, we've got to change the mindset. We're shifting from counting seedlings, counting propagules, nursery establishment, and we're shifting to restoring functioning ecosystems. So just one last point to make is that there is also an important responsibility point, and that is that in many places, local teams will implement what has been funded or approved. Next slide, please. This is a shame that I don't have the animations, but anyway, I'll go back to what I was saying. In many places, local teams will implement what has been funded or approved. They may not always be in a position to question the design. That means responsibility often sits upstream with those designing the programs, with those funding the projects and selecting approaches. So if best practice is not required at that stage, then poor practice can still be rewarded. So these guidelines are not just for practitioners, they are equally for decision makers, because best practice starts with decisions and is proven in implementation. just a takeaway from me on my last slide, please, is that Mangrove NDC success starts with good decisions. It continues through good implementation and is ultimately proven in real ecosystems with coastal communities. And that is exactly why these guidelines matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elena, for sharing those tools and insights. We will now move into our final segment, segment 3, multi-stakeholder collaboration in practice. It is my pleasure to invite Francis Okala, Program Director for Coastal and Oceans Resilience at IUCN Kenya. He will speak about the Global Mangrove Alliance Kenya National Chapter and how collaboration between government and partners supports effective implementation and knowledge sharing. Francis, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. The screen is misbehaving. So, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So, I just wanted to share on how the Global Mangrove Alliance Kenya chapter has gelled over the years. So if you allow me, I'll just share that, confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. This is just based on this photo, just in your mind, I want you to figure out if these are people from the same organization, or are they friends, or have they worked together before? But it is a story of how collaboration and open-mindedness and just trust has really helped the Global Mangrove Alliance Kenya chapter to gel from the initial 5 partners, but right now into an 18-member partnership that also has incorporated the government at ministry level, but also Kenya Forest Service being a key partner at the steering committee level. So initiated through a conversation, but also the need to come together, share best practices, because different organizations have different strengths here and also area of expertise. 25 years ago, the same people you are seeing here, or the organizations that they represent, they couldn't sit on the same table and discuss joint mangrove actions because there was more of siloed operations and everyone was doing their own things. But then Judith just talked about the National Mangrove Management Committee, and the GMA Kenya chapter have really broken these silos. And right now, the chapter and the committee and the government are able to sit down, work on common agenda setting, we've just finished developing a joint country proposition following the Mangrove Breakthrough template. And this shows how thinking as an individual entity or organization doesn't really solve problems, but sitting together, coming together as partners, because we all say Kenya is for us all. And it doesn't matter which institution has employed you, whether government or non-state, but we are working together towards a common goal, advancing mangrove conservation, management, restoration in the countries. So the faces you see here, they really represent a collaboration that is open to share best practices, open to share frustrations even from individual members, but also open to get feedback that is geared towards advancing mangrove conservation within the country. So, like I said, I started gelling 4 years ago, and right now it has blossomed into an 18-member collaboration, and right now we are advancing into defining our resource mobilization strategy, having developed joint programs of work, but also we are in the process of finalizing our 5-year strategy that will guide all actions that we are doing linked to the country's mangrove agenda. And just to say some of the milestones, the way Judith has said, we work closely with the government. Members of the chapter were instrumental in establishing the National Mangrove and County Mangrove Management Committee, and we continue to support the government in championing either policy reforms, but also on-ground capacity development, but on-ground restoration community conservation initiatives. I'll just stop here and feel free to reach out to me if you want to get more experiences, what to do and what not to do when establishing a country chapter. Thank you very much, and back to you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Francis, and thank you to all of our speakers for their insightful contributions across all the 3 segments. To be mindful of time, we are now going to move into the closing remarks of our session. For context, we will compile all the questions that have been asked in the chat from today's webinar, and we will follow up via email just due to time. So thank you for all of your questions. They will be answered, and keep an eye out for that follow-up email. So with that, I am over to pass it to Enyas Begun, the Executive Director of the Mangrove Breakthrough, to further reflect on today's discussions and to share the broader work of the Mangrove Breakthrough and what's to come. Enyas, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us after very dense and very rich presentation from the different panelists. But very shortly, I just want to share how glad I am with this session, because it truly speaks about the value of the Mangrove Breakthrough, right? To be able to offer this space of collaboration, of knowledge sharing, of mutual engagement across government leaders, NGO experts, and how all of this can really reinforce our collective objective towards the Mangrove Breakthrough targets. So this type of meetings, which, there is a lot of work from the respective organization behind, all of this is really where we believe the Mangrove Breakthrough can be the most useful, right? Being this catalyzer, this enabler of collaboration among governments, among NGOs, as well as financial sector, right? And this is where we are collectively moving forward with this work on NDC and policy, is how we can engage and provide the right incentive and the right information for public and private investment to flow into these countries that are showing the leadership, right? I think there is still a challenge to address the common language and the common understanding between policy leaders and NGOs that are, really putting the right tool, the right action in place, the right collaboration, right? As we heard from Francis in Kenya, for instance, the leadership of Brazil, the leadership of Indonesia, the technical expertise of experts from Kenya, how this can be translated to attract and mobilize investment by DFIs, by asset managers, and other financial institutions, right? And we are progressing with this. We are seeing positive signal in the market that there are more and more investors, either from the carbon market space or from more broadly what we call mangrove adjacent sector, that are looking into mangrove, right? And bridging the policy ambition with the willingness from the investors to invest in mangrove as a key nature-based solution is where the Mangrove Breakthrough is trying to make a difference and to support all of you in this endeavor. So, please do reach out to the team, Christina, Annelise, if you want to engage with this work in policy and NDCs and how we move into implementation phase. We, as Mangrove Breakthrough, are of course, available to engage on several other topics with you, from pipeline to finance. Thanks for your attendance. Thanks, Christina, for the brilliant moderation. And thank you to all our panelists who joined us from all over the world, from Indonesia to Brazil through Africa. Really, truly a global effort. So it's wonderful to see that. Congratulations, and we are with you in this collective endeavor. Thank you for your time, and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
On behalf of the Mangrove Breakthrough, I would like to thank all of you for your continued leadership and engagement. We look forward to working together to turn today's ambition into lasting impact. Thank you, and with that, we formally close today's webinar. Wishing you all a great rest of your day, and goodbye for now. Thank you all. Thank you to our panelists for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.